because my next guest just testified before a federal grand jury. He says he was in possession of a trove of digital evidence from Diddy's freak-offs.
Combs' legal team vehemently denied the accusations on his behalf, while the rapper continues to be held in a Brooklyn jail since September, awaiting.
Sean Diddy Combs and his mother Janice share a story filled with deep family ties, legacy, and the weight of an unconventional upbringing. But lately, the rumor mill has been on fire. Whispers are swirling that the FBI might have taken Janice into custody. Yes, you heard that right, suggesting she may have played a role in shaping or even enabling some of the very controversies surrounding Diddy today. The big question everyone's asking, how much did Janice really know? Could she have influenced her son's decisions? This story is layered, messy, and downright shocking, and we're diving deep into all the twists and turns.
Certainly there's a lot of information that needs to be substantiated, investigated, and those kinds of things. But when we look at people who become offenders, we oftentimes see early exposure to whether that's or actual behavior, and we oftentimes see that within the.
Let's rewind to the days when Shaw Combs was just a boy in Mount Vernon, New York, growing up under the roof of a single mother who was determined to give him everything the world had to offer. Janice, yes, his mother, was a former model and teacher's assistant, a woman who refused to let tragedy define her life after losing her husband, Melvin, in the early 70s. She took the reins, stepping up to raise Sean with love and protection, shielding him from the darker truths of their reality. But now, with new allegations about the environment Sean grew up in, it seems that shield might not have been as strong as Janice hoped. You know the story's about to get more complicated from here.
That kind of environment growing up in is going to have an impact on the child growing up. Now, it doesn't make excuses for what people do in adulthood, and the form that can take really depends on a lot of different things, including things such as what are the family values? Are the family values about, being open and honest about things, or if there's trauma in a family, do families deal with it, or how is that child?
A recent documentary, and insiders have been spilling the tea. Sean's childhood home, not exactly the picture-perfect suburban haven we might have imagined. Despite Shaw often being tucked away in another part of the house, it's been revealed that Janice had a reputation for throwing extravagant parties right under their roof. But these weren't your run-of-the-mill family get-togethers. Oh no, these events attracted a wild mix of guests, from the gritty streets of Harlem to the glamorous world of excess and high society. Talk about a clash of worlds.
Another question that we just can't ignore is the role of power. Because one question is, how does somebody become the way they are? And then another question is, how are they allowed to stay the way that they are? And I think that also speaks to this kind of, lack of accountability.
Shaw's childhood friend, Patterson, dropped some jaw-dropping stories in the Peacock documentary Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy. According to Patterson, the parties at Janice's house were anything but ordinary. For young Sean and his crew, it was a non-stop whirlwind, people lounging around in various states of undress, music blaring, and the air thick with reckless indulgence. It was chaos, to say the least, but in hindsight, Patterson believes these wild experiences might have desensitized them to certain behaviors, blurring the lines of what was truly acceptable. Can you imagine what that could do to a young mind?
Still pretty early in the proceedings. I think it's only been about a month or a month and a half since he's been arraigned and held in detention. And so the investigations are always going to be a continuous and ongoing process. I'm sure at this point there's been an exchange of discovery. And not only that, but I think there's been a gag order placed on the attorneys with information that they can and cannot share.
Here's the kicker. This environment might hold the key to understanding Diddy's later years. Take the infamous freak-offs, for example, as described in court documents and testimonies. These wild parties are said to have echoed the very same vibe as those early house gatherings. Despite Janice strongly denying any wrongdoing or influence on her son's adult life, the parallels between Diddy's notorious gatherings and the parties he grew up with are impossible to ignore. Could his past be shaping his present in ways we never imagined? Intro revelations from Patterson's account paint a vivid picture of the sheer variety of people who passed through the Combs household during those parties. Sean grew up surrounded by an eclectic mix, some from the world of glamour, others from much darker, more dangerous circles. Patterson even hinted at moments when they'd accidentally stumble into private rooms and witness things no child should ever see. It creates a chilling image of a young boy thrust into an adult world far too soon, a world where boundaries didn't seem to exist. Now, Patterson wonders, did this early exposure to unchecked indulgence lay the groundwork for Diddy's controversial lifestyle later on? It's important to note that Janice has always been fiercely protective of her son. She worked relentlessly to give him the best shot at success, sending him to private school and even moving the family to a safer neighborhood. But despite her best efforts, the duality of Sean's life, the polished exterior of a private school education, and the chaotic, wild weekends at home created a complex foundation for the man he would eventually become.
Another push to free Sean Diddy Combs tonight, with his legal team citing new evidence in an updated bail proposal. The music mogul agreeing to around-the-clock security and cutting out contact with basically anyone but his legal team to get out of jail ahead of his trial scheduled for May of next year for charges he allegedly coerced and abused women for.
Interviews, Diddy has often credited his mother, Janice, for teaching him the value of hard work and resilience, highlighting the sacrifices she made for him. But he's also shared glimpses into his early years that suggest a more complicated reality. In one revealing interview, he recalled how, as young as 4 or 5 years old, he began seeking attention from women, something he connected to moments when his mother's friends would cradle him on their laps during gatherings. He framed these memories as innocent awakenings, but critics argue they may shed light on the early exposure to adult behaviors that shaped his later choices. How much of this early influence planted the seeds for Diddy's complicated relationship with fame and his lifestyle?
Patterson even hinted at moments when they'd stumble into private rooms and see things that no child should have been exposed to.
As Shaw grew older, he began to carve out his own path, one that, in many ways, mirrored the chaos of his upbringing. Just like Janice's home was a revolving door of personalities, Shaw's adult life became synonymous with extravagant parties and larger-than-life personas. He built an empire on the art of indulgence, creating a world of excess that seemed unstoppable. But now, with recent allegations emerging, it seems the lines between celebration and exploitation might have become dangerously blurred. Has the party lifestyle he crafted for himself gone too far?
Because this new, quote, robust bail package, you can avoid and evade. And he is very connected with people that can help him avoid and evade. I'm not saying he will, but I would be surprised if the court grants him a bond. When the federal government wants you detained, you are normally detained, and here it was a very far-reaching situation that he...
The arrest and the allegations against Diddy are murky, to say the least. While there's been no official confirmation about Janice's involvement, the speculation surrounding it has only added a new layer of complexity to an already tangled web. Could Janice have known about the alleged activities taking place at her son's events? Did her own past parties unknowingly set the stage for the behaviors Diddy is now accused of? These are the questions fueling the gossip machine and sparking endless debate.
Remember when I said Diddy mother might be the originator of the freak-offs? Mm-hmm. All right, so apparently tomorrow there's the Peacock is dropping the Diddy documentary. It's called Diddy, The Making of a Bad Boy, and the doc gets into Diddy's childhood and his experience growing up in connection to the lawsuit and assault allegations he's currently.
Let's take a moment to consider how Janice has handled the public spotlight throughout this entire ordeal. She's been outspoken in her defense of her son, calling the allegations against him nothing more than a public lynching and urging the public to hold off on judgment until all the facts are out. In her statement, she acknowledged that Sean isn't perfect and has made mistakes in the past, but she carefully avoided addressing the more serious accusations head-on. Critics, however, have pointed out that her defense seems to straddle a fine line between unwavering support and outright denial, leaving plenty of room for interpretation as more details continue to surface. As the story unfolds, the focus has increasingly shifted to Diddy's upbringing and the role it may have played in shaping the man he became. On the surface, his childhood seemed like the picture of success, dressed to the nines, attending private school, and playing Little League Baseball. But beneath that polished exterior lay a world of chaos and contradiction. Patterson's accounts, along with Diddy's own revelations about his early experiences, paint a stark image of a boy torn between two worlds. one offering structure and opportunity, the other overflowing with unrestrained indulgence.
That's it. If it is privilege, of course they won't. But if it really is what the prosecution says, that has nothing to do with the case, or even worse, it's actually evidence of witness tampering, because we all know the attorney-client privilege, there's a crime fraud exception. You can't use your lawyer to perpetuate a future or continuing fraud or crime. So if the documents are what the government says they are, they're going to get them again. And again, it's just going to be a matter of days.
The lasting impact of these experiences is tough to measure, but the parallels between Diddy's childhood and his adult life are impossible to ignore. The same themes of freedom, excess, and blurred boundaries run throughout both stories, creating a through line that connects the boy from Mount Vernon to the mogul now sitting in a Brooklyn detention center. Whether Janice's rumored arrest will eventually lead to concrete evidence of her involvement is still up in the air, but the mere suggestion has already ignited a firestorm of speculation. The questions, the rumors, this story is far from over.
There's a few things going on. First is the privilege issue. The judge will decide whether the documents are privileged or not. If they're not, they're going to go to the government. If the documents are not only not privileged, but they're evidence of witness tampering, then a few things can happen, all of which are bad for Sean Diddy Combs. First, of course, it faced obstruction of justice charges in a superseding
Showcase the story of Sean Diddy Combs and the controversies that now engulf him isn't just about one man, it's about a network-ass system and a circle of individuals whose roles in his world are as murky as they are intriguing. The question isn't just what he did or didn't do. It's also about who may have helped him, who turned a blind eye, and who is speaking out now that the empire he built seems to be crumbling. But make no mistake, this isn't just about the glitz and glamour of a fallen music mogul. This is about a web of relationships that stretches back decades, from those closest to him to the people who are now at the center of the lawsuits and criminal investigations. Let's talk about the people in Diddy's orbit. Over the years, his associates have ranged from childhood friends to high-profile executives, from romantic partners to employees who have described working for him as nothing short of chaotic. Tim Patterson has painted a vivid picture of their early years, but it's his more recent revelations that have left people questioning just how deep his involvement with Diddy's world might go. Was Patterson just a bystander, or did he play a part in enabling the very behaviors he now seems to condemn? That's a question the public and perhaps investigators are still trying to answer.
According to the Rolling Stone, the doc features an alleged childhood friend of Puff's, hip-hop producer Tim Dog Patterson. He alleged that Janice, Diddy's mom, would often throw parties at Diddy's childhood home. He says that during the parties, it wasn't uncommon to walk into rooms where adults was having. That was just
the story continues to unfold. An inner circle of employees who worked closely with Diddy, former bodyguards, assistants, even chefs, have started to come forward with some truly alarming stories about what went on behind closed doors. One of the most shocking accounts comes from Roger Bonds, a former bodyguard, who claims to have witnessed Diddy's temper firsthand.